I'm so excited to be here. Again, my name is Jana, and I am very excited to be at my first ever CroftCon. This is my first time here, so.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So again, my first time here. I'm a professor of practice in the A.Q. Miller School of Media and Communication at Kansas State University. You'll see lots of purple in my presentation because that's our colors at K-State. I teach courses in advertising, campaign development, media audiences, digital brand strategy, social media, of course. Prior, though, to teaching, I spent about 15 years in industry working at a number of advertising agencies, working in marketing and communications. A majority of that time, though, was spent in digital and social media. And so today, I get to enjoy sharing my experiences in the classroom with my students and helping prepare the next generation of digital and social media marketers and managers. So I think that's a pretty great job. I'm sure a lot of you do as well here. So today, I want to talk a little bit about 3 power skills that I feel are really imperative for social media managers. When teaching social media management today, we're of course focusing on a lot of those technical skills, skills such as strategy and campaign development, content creation, algorithms, what's the distribution of content look like, paid advertising tools, all the different ad formats. We're talking about measurement, key performance indicators, and we're talking about keeping up with all of the evolving tools, technologies, and applications. Exhausting, right? Keeping up with all of that. We're talking about the newest social media platforms, the newest features, the metaverse, artificial intelligence, which is, I know, being talked a lot about here at this event, and the list goes on. Okay, but today, for this presentation, I wanted to focus on these power skills. So in addition to teaching all of that technical knowledge and skills, I'm really intentional about spending classroom time on these 3 things here. And I wanted to share them with you. So first, helping students understand how to handle customer mistreatment and negative customer communication. Those are some of the research terms, the literature terms, and we'll dive into that here in a minute. Second, understanding how audiences interpret messages and how to effectively communicate with diverse and oftentimes very polarized audiences. And third, how to set up personal guardrails. This one is really key to keep 24/7 social media activity from negatively impacting that personal health and well-being. It's so important. So let's now take a look at each of these 3 power skills and talk about ways that I incorporate them into my curriculum and my classroom. Oops. All right. Angry baby on the computer. Symbolizing our angry customers. So the first power skill, navigating negative customer communication. The research term, around sales and customer service literature for this is customer mistreatment. That's the technical term. And it refers to that low quality treatment towards employees, and in this case, social media managers. And this mistreatment can come in a variety of forms: ambiguous customer demands, unfair expectations, rude and oftentimes very discourteous behavior, insults, irritation about things such as product availability or lack of availability, customer aggression such as swearing, name calling, yelling, which is typing in all caps in the digital space, and bullying. I've experienced a lot of this behavior in my 12 years of managing social media for large and small brands, and it can have a huge impact on professionals. So research on traditional face-to-face negative customer behavior highlights the existence of frequent daily negativity towards service employees, resulting in employee stress and burnout, decreased service performance, and absenteeism. Today, social media is a preferred customer service channel, where customers can seek quick resolution to their issues and share feedback. So my own experiences with customers, fans, and followers as a social media manager and the potential for social media interactions to be quite uncivil because of those digital technology use factors I've listed up here: anonymity, invisibility, mobility. These things have inspired me to research customer mistreatment of social media managers and explore any potential connections to burnout, emotional distress, and reduced job satisfaction. So in a recent study I conducted with 125 social media managers, results show that they are in fact frequently experiencing mistreatment. And on the right-hand side up there, you can see some of the different types of mistreatment based on some already established scales in the literature. But these, the most frequent kinds of mistreatment are customer laziness, customers asking social media managers to do things that they could easily do themselves. I can tell you, as a social media manager wearing many hats, trying to create content, respond to customers, when they're asking me to do things they can easily do themselves, like look up our hours, that can be quite frustrating. Customer impatience, customers not understanding that social media managers have to comply with certain rules. Like, we can't give everybody who has a bad experience a freebie or a discount, okay, like at the drop of a hat. There are rules around that kind of thing at your company. And customer self-importance. Those are some of the most frequent types of mistreatment. The study also found that higher levels of customer mistreatment do predict higher levels of job burnout, including emotional exhaustion and depersonalization of customers. Okay, so this is a real thing. It's really happening, and it is having an impact on social media managers. So how do we address handling customer mistreatment and negative customer communication with the students in our classrooms, who will no doubt experience this kind of behavior on the other end of their phone or computer screen, right? Here's some things that I do with my students in this area. One, I have them read the book Hug Your Haters by Jay Baer. Anybody read this book? It's awesome, right? Yeah, I'm getting a nod. This book helps students think about customer frustration and complaints in a completely different way. So rather than shying away from customer complaints or getting angry or frustrated when they come in and you feel like they're targeted at you, even though they're not, but it feels that way, it helps you understand, this book, that social media managers can extract really useful information from this communication, such as consumer insight for product development and improved customer service. I really, really love this book. I've seen firsthand as a social media manager that having strategic customer response strategies can recover and retain unhappy customers. It's more expensive to get a new customer than it is to keep, right? It can also increase customer advocacy. I've seen someone come at a brand just hating on the brand, and having a strategic response strategy turned that customer into one of our biggest advocates, even like fighting off other people who are trying to come at us. Like, no, they're really, really cool, chill, right? And then third, it can also create a competitive advantage for a brand on social media. In his book, Jay Baer also provides a good template for responding to customer complaints, which I use as an opportunity for classroom activity. It's a great application exercise. I'll go out and pull customer reviews and comments from like real world social media branded accounts and have students practice their response strategies for a variety of different scenarios. I also have students review case studies and lead discussions about how to deal with haters, anti-fans, and good old-fashioned trolls, okay? Because these people just love to cause havoc on social media. I remember managing social media for a large national movie theater chain. And this was a time when all of the movie theater chains were going towards online ticketing fees. They were aligning with other entertainment venues and charging ticketing fees. There was something about this that triggered, like seriously triggered, a group of angry customers and fans. And they would, no matter what content we were posting, whether it was on that topic or not, they would comment just horrible, angry things about how we were the worst movie theater place in the world, how they're going to tell all their friends to hate us and never come. They would tag the brand in, what we would call not safe for work memes and imagery. They would send direct messages about how much they hated this policy. How dare we change the experience and charge, right? It was exhausting. It was exhausting trying to manage that. But as a company, when I was working for this company, we had been proactive in planning what our response would be to that potential negative communication. We had spent time thinking about what the negative communication could potentially be and how we wanted to respond. So at least I had prepared responses that I could just adjust, right? So I found that after practicing these responses with students to negative communication, we did this activity before I had them read Jay Baer's book and after. And after reading the book, students became more strategic in their responses. They were really thinking about what are they really trying to say? What can I learn from this? They were really starting to be strategic in their responses and acknowledging issues. Hey, we made a mistake. Thank you for making us aware. Apologizing if necessary. That's also something that students have to learn, is it's not always necessary to apologize, but sometimes it is. And providing remedies to issues when needed. So an excellent activity with my students in the classroom. The next power skill that I want to highlight is communicating with diverse and, as I mentioned, oftentimes polarized audiences. And understanding how these differences can impact interpretation of media messages. So when we're talking about differences here, I'm talking about demographic differences like age, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, political affiliation, education, socioeconomic status, geographic location, the list goes on. I'm also talking about psychographic differences. Differences in beliefs, behaviors, values, opinions, interests, lifestyles. Okay, so much diversity out there in our audiences today. And understanding that audience backgrounds and experiences shape the lens through which people see the world, and understanding how these lenses have an impact on the way audiences interpret brand messages is essential for social media managers today. Fully understanding who your audience is, what they care about, and what can potentially motivate, and just as importantly, offend, can make or break a piece of content or social media campaign today. Now, with the proliferation of ads and branded content on social media, some brands are creating risky campaigns or ads in an effort to stand out from all that clutter and noise. They want to attract attention. That's what we have to do on social media. These pieces of content can lead to great success and virality. I like to think about Wendy's on Twitter. Had a lot of national media attention, just got people talking, engaging with content, really took a very traditional brand and brought it into a new age. Okay, success. Or that risky content can have severe consumer backlash. Case in point, does anybody remember the Kraft Mac and Cheese nudes campaign from 2020? I'm getting a couple nods. For those of you that aren't familiar, this happened at, pretty midway, I think, through 2020. So kind of take yourselves back there for a minute. We're on lockdown in our homes with our, hopefully with our close family, but we can't see a lot of our other family and friends. So, there's some loneliness and some, itching to get outside and see people. And so Kraft Mac and Cheese, which is a very family-friendly brand, mac and cheese is a comfort food. Their team came up with this campaign that, you can send some comfort to someone by sending them a box of nudes, meaning noodles, but it's a play on word, right? Some of their campaign had things kind of blurred out to kind of play on that nudes component. Now, I really love a good snarky campaign. I love it, okay? But in this particular instance, I think this is a good example for students to illustrate a brand that completely forgot who its target audience is. Traditionally, families with children, moms with children. They didn't think ahead about how the connection between mac and cheese and nudes, whichever way you spell it, would be interpreted by that audience. There was extreme backlash on social media. Within a week, Kraft issued an apology and seemingly like just deleted all traces of this campaign anywhere online. Okay. So some social media content put out by brands may not initially appear to fall into that riskier, controversial category, but audiences can still interpret a message completely different than the brand intended. So how do we encourage students? I feel like we have a little bit of a conundrum here. I've talked a lot about this with my students and some industry professionals too about how they approach this. But how do we encourage students to be both creative, try new things, attract the attention of consumers, fans, followers, but also be mindful of potential content responses from diverse and sometimes very polarized audiences? Here's some things that I do with my students in the classroom. One thing I do is I introduce students to media interpretation theories. You know, I come from a media and communication school, and so we're steeped in media studies and interpretation theories such as semiotics, the study of signs and their significance in society. We're looking at reception theories that look at how audiences make meaning of media messages through the processes of encoding and decoding messages, and where along that spectrum things might potentially go wrong. Okay. In marketing and strategic communications, we routinely talk to our students about audience segmentation and analysis, right? But in my experience, audience interpretation theories add an extra layer that I think strengthens student understanding of the need for audience-centered approach to social media marketing. I love case studies, good and bad. I love them all. And I really love the case study of �MCD Stories hashtag. Is this ringing a bell for anyone? �MCD Stories? Yeah, a couple nods. So it's a little bit old. It's from 2012, okay, but it's still really relevant, I think, where McDonald's launched a Twitter campaign using the hashtag in an attempt to feature organic farmers, stories about organic farmers and things they produce to kind of drive awareness of its, at the time, fresh vegetables and high quality meat ingredients. Okay, that was what the campaign was about. So for all of us marketers, strategic communicators in the room, like, is that really what consumers think about when they think about McDonald's? Is it about high quality products? Or is it more about convenience, price, consistency? So it's just a great example of like audience interpretation, because in this case, the audience hijacked the hashtag. We call that a bash tag. When the audience hijacks the campaign, the hashtag turned into a bash tag. So instead of getting like all these really great stories, you know, user-generated content from stories about how great the food is at McDonald's, instead the campaign attracted snarky tweets. There's just one. There's a lot. Go Google it. It's really fun. It's a fun read. Where they're sharing their own horror stories about food quality. So spending time talking with our students about where in the creative process social media teams could have potentially foreseen some of that alternative interpretations of that message is good practice for when they get into industry and are going to do this kind of work. And let's see, the third power skill that I want to highlight, which I think is just so important and kind of spins off some of the work, the research that I've been doing with negative customer mistreatment and how that can impact social media managers' mental health and well-being. This is a huge area that I spend a lot of time on with my students. While working as a social media manager for large and small brands, I've experienced my fair share of frustration from rude customers, doing some of those things I mentioned before. Stress from seeing a brand through a crisis. I managed social media for a brand that had an active shooter, where they actually the police ended up shooting the shooter in their parking lot. So it's all over the media. Very stressful, very upsetting. Stress from constantly having to come up with unique and engaging content all the time, because that's what's expected of you. Burnout, lots of burnout from real-time 24/7 customer relationship management and support. I've worked a lot in retail and hospitality for social media, and the doors don't, proverbially close on social media just because the business closes. I've had, it's in movie theater chains, for example, it's like late night and there's nobody there, but someone is angry about an experience they had and they want results right now. Well, I'm sleeping or I'm eating dinner with my family, right? That can cause a lot of burnout. I can remember literally standing up and walking away from my computer. I had to. I remember my husband having lots of conversations with me about how I was managing some of that stress and burnout. And so I think it's so important that we talk to our students about this. Managing multiple social media accounts and all of the responsibilities that come with that have the potential to trigger work-life conflicts and impact mental health. So there's a lot of excitement and growth in professional social media. Increasingly, Gen Z is looking towards social media management and influencing in some way, shape, or form as fulfilling and successful careers, which is exciting because even with all the things I've mentioned, I would never go back. Like, I love the work I've done in social media. I love it. I would never go back and do something different. Industry demand for professional social media management skills is also growing rapidly. It's making lots of top 10 lists, okay, of highest growing jobs, skill demand for employers across multiple industries. However, it's important to note that studies have linked excessive social media use to lower self-esteem, social isolation, lack of sleep and concentration, unhappiness, and mental health problems like anxiety and depression. So what do you do when social media is your full-time job and that's where you're spending all of your time? How do you set up guardrails to protect your time, your energy, and your creativity? Here's some things that I do with my students to approach this topic. The first thing I do is I have a real honest conversation with them about the pros and cons of social media as a full-time job. I've read that like in the medical industry, like medical schools have courses that help prepare medical professionals for some of the stress and anxiety that goes along with working in a high demanded career. Well, social media management is a high demand career. There's a lot of stress and anxiety that can go with it. So I take a couple of classroom days in like the 16 weeks of a course, particularly my social media strategy and management course. I take several classroom days to do kind of like a mock debate where students get into teams and we have like these pro-con couplings. So for example, one team might have to argue the point that you get paid to spend time on your favorite social media platforms. How cool is that? Right? You can go viral. You can communicate with your favorite influencers. You can be creative and come up with new ideas, have fun. There's a lot of job flexibility. And there's a lot of other perks too. So they argue to that point. Then the other group will argue the opposite. There can be such a thing as too much of a good thing. So they may talk about things like experiencing creative exhaustion. Yeah, things can go viral, especially mistakes. It's all over the place. Having to work nights and weekends, especially when you're in some of those retail and hospitality industries. Having to keep up with changes in a constantly evolving industry. So that other team is talking to those points. And we try to talk about how to find a balance, right? Yes, you can have a fun and rewarding, exciting career, but you also need to set up some guardrails for these other areas. I also talk to my students about the importance of finding a support network. It's something, 12 years ago, I wish that I'd had someone to tell me to do that, but again, it was a growing field. It was in its infancy, well, it's still in its infancy, but like it was really just born when social media became a thing for brands. And I oftentimes, our students will go and work in social media at a place where they are the only person touching social media. Yeah, many of our students will go off to work at an agency or a large corporation where they have a full social media team, and that's great. But not everyone will do that. Actually, many of our students will go off and be the solitary person. And so it can be a very solitary job. So I encourage them to find internal and external support resources. So externally, find some sort of industry-associated club or organization, advertising club. I know in Kansas City, where I'm originally from, we had a kind of an offshoot within Ad Club just for social media people, which was really cool. Social media clubs are in many major metros around the country, and there's so many more. I'm sure many of you could name more. But there's just something really special about getting to talk with other people who are doing that kind of work, and talking about your successes, your challenges, things you're working on, getting advice. Last year I went to Social Media Week in New York City, and I was like, oh, my people. Like, it was like amazing just to be able to surround myself with other people who are doing incredible social media work and also dealing with some of those challenges. So it's like, how can you find that support? So that's one of the big things that I encourage my students to do. Find that external support. Internally to your organization or business, it is so imperative for students when they get hired to work in social media that they have a real frank conversation with their boss or manager or director about what, communicate those clear expectations. Like, ER doctors have on-call times, right? Like, they're not always on call. They have rotations. Well, why is a social media manager, the sole social media manager at a company, expected to always be on call? You need to go and talk to your boss about setting clear expectations and finding out how you can have a rotation so that you have an opportunity to have a life outside of work. Because I'm telling you, when I had a social media consulting company, I was managing social media for brands for a couple years. And anytime we wanted to go on vacation, I had to try to find an intern or work from the hotel while my family's out swimming. It caused a lot of chaos in those early days. So have some clear communication with your boss about what those expectations are from them and you in this role. And then also set up what I call social media champions within your organization or your business. People throughout the company or organization that can help with social media content ideation and brainstorming. Because again, if you are that sole person, that is exhausting. And we all have ups and downs in our creativity. Sometimes it comes really naturally and sometimes it just doesn't. And it's a lot of pressure. So if you can find people, whether it's in sales, customer service, product development, all these different areas, okay, your marketing department, people in your marketing department, identify these champions early and have them meet every 2 weeks, once a month, whatever that is, to help you come up with the next month's content calendar and the next month after that. So that it's not just you. Because I had a time where I set up these champions at a very large organization, and we had people from sales and customer support come in, and they were finding all of these incredible stories of customers who were having great experiences with our products and services, and I would have never known that unless I had connected with those people. Because they're busy doing their job. They're not thinking about social media for the company. So it's you have to go out and make those connections and set up those resources. So these are the kinds of things that I'm talking to students about and helping prepare them for this world of work. So it's so important that in addition to those technical skills and knowledge, that we're spending time on some of these power skills too. So I'm at time. These power skills that I've highlighted today are just a few of many related to leadership, teamwork, communication, productivity, and wellness that are critical to every social media manager's performance, especially I've seen post-pandemic and in remote and hybrid work environments today. So thank you.